Recently, we were invited to ResBaz. ResBaz is an intensive festival and conference that brings together researchers from different fields to upskill in next-generation digital tools. So Drew, Alex and I, we packed our bags and headed off to UNSW. When we arrived at ResBaz, we met up with Ria, who's involved in the organization committee. She's also the person who invited us. I asked Ria what her favorite thing about ResBaz was.
Well, what's fun about it is that you get to connect with a whole bunch of people that are interested in this stuff. So it's really nice to be able to meet people who are in similar roles to you at different universities and sort of share what you're doing. You know, we face sort of similar challenges in our workplaces and how we're trying to best support research. To be able to talk about that and meet people and connect is really fun.
What would you recommend? What sort of talks or workshops or things should we see for Blab codes?
Okay, well, I guess it depends where your interest lies. There's all sorts of lightning talks this afternoon of people who are attending get an opportunity to share their research and what they're doing and the challenges they've faced and what's exciting about it. The poster sessions also, you know, everyone that attends is encouraged to bring around a poster of their research. I'm heading to a workshop this morning on Walk the Data Talk, which is about the FAIR data principles and sort of best practice with data workflow and that sort of thing. And this afternoon I'm going to a workshop on open access tools. But the one thing you shouldn't miss today is the keynote speaker is from Western Sydney. Rachel Hendry is giving a talk at 3 o'clock on research partnerships and digital humanities.
Don't miss that.
100%, don't miss that.
Having spoken to Ria, we wanted to see what University of New South Wales was like. And as you can see, it's quite beautiful. So we got back from our exploration and Alex was a little bit scared about not having vegan food, but luckily Ria took care of him.
Alex,
Yeah.
what are you going to do for food, man?
Well, apparently Ria said she could score me some vegan food, but we can go and look if you want.
I don't think she's going to get you anything.
Yeah, well, let's go look. Otherwise, Guzman and Gomez.
How do you feel having received your vegan meal?
Good, man.
Veggie. Vegan halal.
Let's see what we got.
I like it out here.
So what's the plan? So Drew, you're gonna go and
I'm gonna go watch a talk, watch a lecture that talks about like the different computing languages.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try and compare them, see what they're good for, what they're best at.
You know, we're not biased really towards any one of these. We might have personal opinions about them, but from a professional standpoint, we don't really care which of these languages people prefer to use.
You're also meeting your brother, aren't you?
Yeah, my brother.
Doing a PhD in music at the
Yeah,
moment.
PhD in music. Yeah,
Wow.
hopefully I'll catch him around.
On improvisation? Is
Yeah.
how musicians use improvisation, or how other people listen to improvisation?
I think I think it focuses on how the audience can interact with the composers, give them kind of conditions and how they can improvise based on those conditions, based on how social interactions occur and how those influence an improv.
it's not like when the comedian's like, shout out a word, and somebody calls out.
It's pretty much like that. He gets cue
Oranges.
cards. They have a randomized cue card. They also get audience members to figure out like a theme or something for their sort of story, and then they have 3 instruments that play a character in the story. They have a narrator, and then they have some like sort of background music, and then they'll improv the whole way through, and they'll swap up. Like make say for example they get a cue card, they pull out a shuffled cue card deck, and it might say slow-mo, and then, then narrator has to make a slow-mo scene, and the musicians have to do really slow kind of playing their character as if they're in slow-mo. So it's,
Wow.
That's awesome.
it is.
That
That,
sounds-
that was his master's thesis, so I don't know if his PhD might be.
Why are you doing science street? Go do some fun shit like that. Yeah, seriously. What are you doing? Doing a master's of
Yeah, it
research?
is, I guess, a bit more exciting. But
Actually, master of research is actually really good.
I'm enjoying it so far. Pretty good.
I approve.
Doesn't matter if you like science, if you like humanities, it's a good degree.
Do you approve?
I like the Master of Research too.
I really like the
to
the people who run it at Jack and Alex or Jalex trademarked
Shift
TM.
name.
Yeah. What?
Shift. They shift. You gotta shift them.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Oh, I heard
Combine
shit
the
name.
names.
Yeah. You know what ours is?
What? What?
Say it, Alex.
You got the better accent for it.
Al Hamid.
Al.
Al Hamid. Alex and Hamid. Al Hamid. I'll absorb the white man. After lunch, we went to go and see Rachel Hendry's talk. Associate Professor Rachel Hendry is a linguist by training, but she gave a talk about how one can build partnerships. And this is really important for me, and I think important for many people, particularly PhD students and postgrad students, because a lot of times the success of our project is really dependent on the partnerships we can form.
When you're trying to develop a partnership, it's really about people, not about institutions. So you need to find people that you really want to work with, who share your values and your culture and have the same sort of goals as you, and people who make you excited to want to work with them, so that you don't run away when you see their emails. Another takeaway was that although it's nice to think that we're in a global connected world, actually being physically close to where somebody else is or another institution makes things a lot easier. And I talked a bit about how it's hard to work on projects across different time zones. And everyone tends to collaborate mainly with the people that they see on a day-to-day basis. So it's really about the geographical location of these people. And I talked about how we need to conceptualise research differently when we're partnering with people who aren't academics, because sometimes we think of research as being this really kind of traditional method of you read things, you write academic papers, you treat data in a particular way. If it's digital research, that you need to be able to program and create particular types of technologies. And actually, if you're working with the broader community or with organisations that aren't academics, you've got to think a bit more broadly about what research might involve and how you carry it out.
Something really cool that Rachel worked on was Indigenous VR. She didn't go into a lot of depth in her talk, so I asked her a question afterwards to unpack what she did.
So what that is when you first enter the virtual reality experience, you fly over Sydney and you hear various elders giving welcome to the country from the location. You also hear one of the women we've worked with talking about her conceptualisation of how the different languages of Sydney are connected to each other, and how the land is kind of a fuzzy boundary that people have had different ways of using. Then you stop over Sydney as a sort of wireframe with the country poking through, and you hear one of the other women talking about how the history isn't gone, even though it's below the city, and the language and culture is still there around us. And then you end up in a bushland situation, which is what I showed there. And that bushland is created by photogrammetry of specific sites around Sydney that were important to the people we worked with, but also a little bit of artistic license. And the land is actually made out of layers of language, so the words create the land around you, and they come up from the land. And you can touch the words and hear people speaking the words. The words are mostly for plants and animals, and then the animal words fly away or move away, and the plant ones disappear. And you hear, and there's some other stuff, and the sea's there, and there's another scene, and it's all really cool. You should try it out sometime. So you could have tried it out at the UTS library until yesterday, but it is in an exhibition about Indigenous VR that's going to be, I think, November at UTS. Have a look online. I'm sure if you search for Indigenous VR Film Festival, you'll find it, and it's going to be in that.
Drew was also interested in knowing what sort of impact her work had on the community.
How did like people from the community react when they saw the results of their research put into these like big VR environments and stuff? Did they get to see the impacts of their research?
Yeah, that's been a really great thing for me with the VR particularly. Like with some other kinds of community research, it's not quite so overwhelming to people when they see the outcomes. Like when you're running a report together, people can be really happy about the outcomes. Like other community members I've worked with where we've written a white paper for government, or we've created a web page or something like that. Like they can be really impressed and glad they did it and they see the value, but they're not overwhelmed and blown away. But with the VR, that really does have that impact. So with the people we've been working with who aren't necessarily programmers themselves, they don't really experience the full experience until it's finalised. So they've been working with us along the way with paper and pen and talking and thinking about what it might be like. But then there's something in that moment where they put the headset on and they are in this world that they co-created with you. And like we've had people with tears in their eyes and people who are just like so overwhelmed they can't even move. And people who are like, I've got to show this to my grandma, you know. And it actually makes it feel really worthwhile.
Yeah.
Whenever I meet people who are really accomplished, I have an urge to ask for advice. So I asked Rachel what sort of advice she would give someone in my position.
I mean, my first piece of advice would be that HDR students should be going to ResBaz. I know you said there are some here, but we have lots of HDR students at Western Sydney who I think would have gained a lot from being here, who maybe didn't even know about it. So I think that this is such a fantastic opportunity to learn new skills and technologies and not actually have to pay very much for it. Like I saw something come around the other day on the email advertising some sort of tech workshop for $600 a day for our students. And I'm like, well, you can go to ResBaz and pay $30 for the whole week and gain most of the benefits. So yeah, they should be coming, that's one thing. Another piece of advice is that I think HDR students need to be really broad in terms of thinking about what they should try and what they should learn. Because you might say, okay, my research is on 18th century French literature, so I need to know about the 18th century history and I need to know about French language and I need to know about literary theory. But actually you can think more broadly than that and think, what might I be doing 5 years, 10 years from now, both in terms of academic research and also what possibilities outside of university might I be looking into. And then you can plan for that as well and take classes on things that might not intersect exactly with your research topic but give you a much broader scope. I wouldn't have known I'd be doing virtual reality 10 years ago. I would have thought there's no way I need those skills, and I just got into it by accident.
So Drew and I we did a wrap up on the day, reflecting on the things that we saw and experienced for ResBaz, but apparently I didn't record that. Sorry, Drew. So instead, I luckily also met Doris and asked her what the highlight for her was. So who's that?
So my name is Doris Harrison and I work at UNSW. For me, the highlight was to see the engagement of researchers, that thirst for knowledge, that the way that everyone was sharing and learning and exploring alternative ways in which they can better their research or increase their reach. For me, that makes all the hard work worth it.
You guys can walk across here. We'll just feature you on lab coats without your consent, though.
They can walk across, and that's
Do you even know who I am? Bro, do you even know who I am?
I'm part of Blab coats, bro. Get on my level.
Dude, I'm so much shorter than you are.
Well, can't all be as tall as me.
No.
Well,
Well, as good looking as you.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, we're unbalanced. We're unbalanced, guys. It's glasses, no glasses. I should go in the middle.
No, you shouldn't. Alex,
Can't let
Alex.
him be. You're nobody.
You're nobody.
I'm a somebody. Alright.
Oh my god. Can you imagine if we become that vile of a human being?
We could. Nah. I don't think I could do that. I'd probably hate myself.
Oh my god.
But you know.